In a surprising but not entirely unexpected development, President Trump just announced that he will speak directly with Chinese President Xi Jinping this coming Friday, September the 19th. This is expected to be a significant moment, an important event in ongoing negotiations over TikTok, trade, and the broader U.S. China relationship. This follows the announcement by U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent that a framework agreement has been reached to keep TikTok operating within the United States. However, I also want to point out that Trump mentioned that he is ready to ban TikTok in the United States if a deal doesn't go through, if the negotiations fail. According to Bessent, the deal still remains in a draft format. It is centered around one major theme, which is ownership divestiture. In very simple terms, the Chinese parent company of TikTok, ByteDance, would need to cede control of the app's U.S. operations to American hands. Now, there's a lot to be said about this draft agreement from a political point of view, of course, but that will be reserved for the next video. According to Bessent, the framework is for it to switch to U.S.-controlled ownership. That change is required under a bipartisan national security law, which mandates TikTok be sold or shut down. The law was signed under Biden's administration, but has been carried forward under Trump, who has repeatedly emphasized TikTok's role, its importance in helping him connect with younger voters, which is a demographic that is notoriously very difficult to reach for older politicians. In a post on Truth Social on Monday, September the 15th, Trump confirmed the call. He said, "I will be speaking to President Xi Jinping on Friday. The relationship remains a very strong one." 3 exclamation marks. Classic Trump, but beyond the punctuation, there is a real shift in tone here, and hopefully you can notice that too. He's now effectively saying that I want cooperation over confrontation. Trump does want this to work out, I assume, based on this tone, but China isn't going to back down either on its core principles, which are respectful cooperation, as it's stated many, many times, and also the United States cannot ask China to take care of its concerns while continuing to suppress Chinese enterprises, according to China's international trade representative. This moment represents more than just TikTok's future, of course. It signals a thawing, likely a temporary one, let's be realistic, a thawing of tensions between the world's 2 largest economies. For months, Beijing and Washington have been entangled in aggressive posturing, sanctions, and retaliatory investigations. Just last week, China launched 2 new probes into the U.S. semiconductor industry, and that followed the United States expanding its entity list to include 23 more Chinese companies that are now deemed national security risks. And yet, despite this climate, both sides managed to strike a preliminary deal. So the threat of a TikTok shutdown was significant enough to bring both sides to the table in a way where the U.S. side appears to be approaching the talks less aggressively than previously. The deal's commercial terms reportedly maintain what Bessent called TikTok's Chinese characteristics. It's unclear what he actually meant by that, but the deal does now have what Bessent believes are critical features to satisfy American national security concerns. While the specifics remain under wraps at this point in time, the likely outcome involves a US-led consortium taking operational control of TikTok's American branch with data storage, user privacy, and content moderation overseen by American entities. It is a compromise, but one that is designed to keep 170 million US TikTokers online while also removing any real or perceived Chinese state influence over the data. And this new framework agreement also arrives in the middle of a wider détente. Tariff escalations, which peaked at a staggering 145%, as you may recall, are now paused, with both sides hinting at further extensions when the current ceasefire deadline hits in November. A U.S. trade representative also said this week that the pause could be extended another 90 days. That remains to be seen. And while that may seem like a bureaucratic kicking of the can, it does buy time for both countries, and it is crucial time. And in my opinion, both sides benefit from that pause, as do American consumers, let's be honest. A potential in-person meeting between Trump and Xi at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum in South Korea next month could finalize a broader set of trade agreements. It will likely stretch far beyond the realm of TikTok, but not all is smooth sailing at this point either. Beijing did express its discontent over Washington's calls for the G7 to impose 100% tariffs on Chinese purchases of Russian oil. This is a proposal that, unsurprisingly, drew immediate backlash from China's foreign ministry, which labeled the plan, quote, bullying and economic coercion. And let's be honest, it's exactly that. China is correct here. But this issue does add yet another layer of complexity to an already complex puzzle. What we see here is the Biden-era policies that push for economic decoupling now seem to be transforming slowly but surely into a more transactional, somewhat flexible Trump-style strategy. This is likely a positive twist to this story. Besson said one interesting thing that I would also like to point out. As he put it, the Chinese delegation is tough. That's his word. They're tough, but they also recognize that they have 3.5 years to de-risk the U.S. trade relationship if they want to avoid full-blown decoupling. And that is a window of opportunity for both sides to capitalize on. This is not just beneficial to China, let's be honest. The U.S. economy would suffer greatly if the United States of America decoupled from China. We just can't do that realistically.